Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Forecast Better with Portfolio Forecaster. My name is Iman, and I will be your host for this session. We are really thrilled to have you all here with us today. But before we start, I would like to have like a quick icebreaker, so we get to know all of you joining us today. So can you just write down in the chat box where are you from? Exactly, like just write down your country and let's see where are you joining us today. We have Nigeria, we have Kenya, Say. I don't know if I spelled it right. Lisa, we have Sweden again, we have Egypt, Nigeria. Hi, Angela. We have also again Nigeria, Eunice from Accra. Nice. Just write down where you are from exactly. Okay, so before we dive into the content of our webinar, I would like to introduce OnPoint, the host of this webinar. So we are an international software company and we are present in multiple countries. We have Nigeria, Ghana, Malta, Tunisia, the Czech Republic, and many more. And we are also a proud partner with technology leaders like Atlassian and Microsoft. And I would like to mention that here at OnPoint, we specialize in customizing these solutions to meet the unique needs of our clients. And today we have a special guest with us, Julia. She's joining us from 55 Degrees, same as Margot that she joined us last week, also from 55 Degrees. So Julia.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi. How are you today?
I'm doing really great here in Sweden. Really excited to see everyone from so many people from Africa, which is really cool. I don't know if y'all know, but we're not a super big company, but one of our marketers is from Ghana, actually. And so we are really excited to see that representation here.
Yeah, now we have a lot of audience in Ghana and also like in Africa in general. Nice. Okay, thank you so much, Julia, for joining us. And we are really excited for this session. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, I am super excited to be here. As Yemen said, this is the second in a series of webinars that 55 Degrees is doing in tandem with OnPoint. Last week, you may have heard my colleague, Margot Fisch, talk about estimating in actionable agile analytics. And sometimes what people call estimating, we call forecasting. It's not exactly the same, but we're trying to talk about better ways to do things that people have struggled with for a long time. And so today we're talking about forecasting better with one of our products called Portfolio Forecaster. So I'm going to share a few slides with you and then go right into a demo. I'll try to keep it brief and we can do the most important thing, which is talk about the questions that you have, either on the topic of forecasting as it pertains to the type of work that I'm showing you here, or just about the tool itself. So a little bit before we start, to give you some context, Portfolio Forecaster is available on the Atlassian Marketplace. I'll have a slide at the end after the demo just to remind people. It's currently available for Jira Cloud and Jira Data Center. So I will be talking a little bit about what's coming up, but I'll be showing you what we have now and a sneak peek that not everyone's seen about some things that are coming up soon. Okay, so let's talk forecasting. So I think everyone here has been asked this question at least once in their work life, right? And depending on your job role, you get asked this question more than anything else. It sounds like such a simple answer, a simple question that we can provide a simple answer to, but it's actually quite complex because there are factors that go into play that we can't control. We don't always even know all the factors. And so what seems like a very simple question, we can get ourselves into trouble by giving answers that we aren't very certain about. So let's talk about the problems that we are trying to help people get away from or solve with Portfolio Forecaster. And I've before I co-founded 55 Degrees, I was a long-time IT manager running web dev departments, and I had stakeholders, multiple ones. I had departments telling me, I don't think you could even get slower with your team if you tried. So I've been there. I'm not just some random person making software that I've never needed. I've lived this, and so I just want to hear from you in the comments if these kinds of things are things that you're experiencing as well. Okay, so when you think about you're trying to answer the question, when will it be done? And this could be for, what we're going to talk about today is for like projects or collections of work, multiple items together, right? And not just for a single one, but we don't often have the luxury of just having one project or one initiative going on at a time. A lot of times we have multiple ones. So it gets quite crazy. Now, the first problem that we experience, even when we look at one of those initiatives or projects or whatever word you want to use on its own, is that it can be extremely costly to answer that question in traditional ways. So in all of my experience, we were really falling back to what we knew, which was the expert estimations based on task breakdown structures, looking at trying to figure out every single thing that we think we would have to do. We would assign some time estimates to that, roll it all up, and come up in a big Microsoft project plan with the end date, right? And not only were we taking a lot of time to do that, but the people that did that were usually, we needed the people who knew the most. So these were also the people that are needed the most on other critical path items. And so taking them away to spend all of this time doing this big exercise up front before a project was extremely costly in ways that we knew, but we didn't know how to do it any other way. So we spend all of this time and money getting this initial forecast, but then we're usually wrong, right? And that's not because the people are stupid. It's because that what causes the item to take as long as it takes is more than just how long it takes to sit down and do the piece of work. If you think about just an individual piece of work and I ask you, well, how long would that take you to do it? You could say 2 hours. But then we have to prioritize that thing. So 5 days later, we'll get to that. You might have been sick. There's a meeting. You got interrupted. There's a production outage. There's so many other things that factor into how long it will actually take us to finish that piece of work or when we can actually deliver the finished one out of the door. And I didn't even mention the story points thing yet, right? Which is a model of complexity, which again isn't anything more than a single factor of how long it takes for work items to get done. So what I'm basically trying to say, there's a lot of systemic influences that cause us to deliver work at a certain rate, and that cause it to take a certain amount of time to even finish a single piece of work. We can't really sit down and understand the complexity of that model to build the best mousetrap to figure out how long it will take to get that done. It's not even worth the effort to try to make a model that good. I don't think we'd be successful. Now, because of those two things, it's hard enough to get the first pass, but as time moves on, it's extremely cumbersome, still costly, still inaccurate to update. We are getting closer to the end, so some more things are known, but it's still extremely costly and hard to provide accurate answers. And then maybe even the most important thing of all, that's difficult with traditional methods, is that when we do come up with a forecast, we rarely have any other data besides a really good gut feel, educated guess sense of how likely we are to meet that particular forecast. If you think about it, we know that we don't work in a certain world. Like uncertainty reigns. That's the whole reason we're all trying to adopt agile methodologies, etc. If we could be certain, we wouldn't need any of that. We would just plan, get it done, we'd be right, and we'd move on. So the days of being able to trust that we can get a single forecast and know for certain that that's going to be the one is out the door. It's a non-starter. We shouldn't even waste time on that. What we need to do instead is start figuring out ways to understand how many possible outcomes are there for when we could deliver this work, and start to understand how likely those different outcomes are so we can pick one that fits our tolerance and move forward. So the historical thing to do here is when you do this wrong, you double down and just do it harder. But I don't think you should waste your time, again, like I said, trying to perfect a flawed model. Instead, we have a tool called Portfolio Forecaster that we want to help you use to just change the underlying way you approach forecasting. The first thing I want you to think about is that we're going to use your data as a model. Okay, instead of having to sit down and figure out how long different items are going to take to get done, we're not going to do any of that in advance. We're going to look at the rate at which you've finished similar work in the past. And we're going to say, okay, unless conditions have significantly changed, this is what we're capable of, right? It may not be 100% perfect, but it's fast, it's cheap, and it's as accurate or better than what we knew before. So we're going to use your JIRA data. That makes it less costly. We're going to get more accuracy by not just, trying out trying to figure out what that project plan would look like. Instead, we're going to take all that data, look at what you need to get done, and we're going to run thousands of simulations to see what all the possible outcomes are. Okay, so you will be more aware of what could happen. One thing, if you don't know how likely something is to happen, the thing is to do it over and over and over again and start getting data so that you can know the chances of something happening, like rolling a die, or for how long it takes to finish a single piece of work. Every time you finish a piece of work, you've got another data point to start figuring out the odds. Well, when it comes to large projects, we don't have the luxury of finishing a bunch of large projects over time and then seeing that, right? That is a way to do it, but it's not realistic. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at, and I'll show you this in the demo, we're going to look at how much work is in these projects, and we're going to look at the rate at which you finish work, run simulations, and give you accurate forecasts. And because as you work, your data, which is what we're using to generate the forecast, is going to be updated, your forecast will automatically be able to update for you without any extra work to go update that. Basically, you do the work and it updates, sort of like your GPS as you're driving. And you'll see here in a second that instead of not knowing how likely something is to happen, you're going to be able to think about how certain do I need to be, because you're going to have the option to forecast with any level of certainty, except 100. We already said you can't have 100%, right? So do you need to be 85% certain? Is 70 okay, et cetera? What's your risk tolerance? So you're able to align a forecast that matches the certainty you need and doesn't overtake the risk tolerance that you're comfortable with, because there's always a chance that you'll be wrong, just like there's always a chance that we'd be wrong in any other method, because something could always happen that's never happened before, that's unforeseeable. So I want to dive into that. And so I'm going to go into a demo here. And okay, great. So I'm in my JIRA demo instance right now. And the first thing you're going to do is navigate to a project. Now I'm in JIRA Cloud, but JIRA Data Center is going to work the same way. So I, as an individual, am coming in here and I'm able to create a forecast. That's my personal forecast. I can make one for this project. So I am going to come to the web browser app project, come down to Portfolio Forecaster. Don't worry, you won't have to. That's just a development thing. And then I can choose whether or not I want to forecast via epics, because the epics are generally, in the past at least, the containers that people put collections of work in. They might even group a bunch of epics together into a release, which then you might want to look at a version, etc. So you can choose epics or versions. I'm going to show you epics. The mechanism of how you go through creating the forecast and what it looks like in the end will be the same. So if you're interested in more about versions, you should understand by the end of this, but we can also answer questions. Okay. Now, what we need to do first is we need to find out a little bit about what you want to forecast. Okay. There's a 3-step process. So first, we're going to say, hey, what do you want to forecast? So I am actually here, I'm looking at, I thought this was the web browser project. So this should be the web browser project. That's the one I'm in. We don't automatically fill it in for you because you can choose any other project, but I'm choosing all the epics in the web browser app project. I can filter them down if I want, but right now I'm not filtering those epics any more deeply. It found 22 epics in that project. So I'm going to apply that. And it's going to look inside of that and see how much work is left. And so that's what we're trying to forecast. You'll see that in a second. Now, in order to run the simulations, it needs to know what we're capable of. So I want to tell it what data to use to know what we're capable of, right? And this is going to be easier in the new version. I'm going to sneak preview you with here in a second. But here, let me tell you sort of an easy way to get the right data for your forecast. The biggest thing we want to do is compare apples to apples in most cases. So if you think about the kind of work that's in your epics that you're trying to forecast, that's what you want to choose here. So in my epics, I'm trying to forecast. I usually am going to have, I'm going to have stories, bugs, tasks, etc. I don't want to pull anything else. So I could actually put is equal to, and then I could put story, bug, task, etc. I'm going to update that. And it found 22 matching issues of story, bugs, or tasks that were finished in the last 60 days. I could change that to be a longer time period. It will tell you that you'll need at least 10 items because if we're going to run this model, we need enough data to be pretty confident we've got an idea of what you're capable of, right? So as long as you have at least 10, it will let you run the simulation. So I'm going to hit apply. Again, I could add more filters if I want, but I'm just going to hit apply. So, and then the third thing is the confidence level I need. So I want, if I tell this forecast to use a confidence of 85%, basically I'm telling it when you run the simulations and you get 10,000 trials that have a certain finish date, I want to be 85% certain that our outcome is, is going to, I want to be 85% certain that this outcome will happen. So if I choose 85%, that means there's a 15% chance that whatever forecast it gives me will be, that we'll miss that forecast. So let me go ahead and click start here. What it's going to do is it's going to find the epics that are in progress right now, because I'll show you how to look at the ones that aren't in progress. And it's going to show the ones that are in progress and still have work remaining in them. Okay. So we have 2 epics that are in progress in an in progress status category. So this is a Jira workflow state that's not in a to-do kind of status or a done kind of status. Okay. Now, if I had a due date, it would show that due date here and the likelihood that that would be finished. And it also tells me how many items are remaining in that epic and when we are 85% likely to finish it by. So what this means is that there's 2 in progress for this web browser app project. The create an admin console, there's an 85% chance we'll finish it on or before September 22nd, given that there's one item remaining and we're working on both of these epics at the same time. Okay, this translations epic has 4 items remaining. It's 85% chance to finish on or before October the 3rd, 2024. Now, there's always a bit of randomness, so you can sit here and rerun this, and depending on your data set, you might see the individual dates change a day here or there, but it's actually not going to be drastically different. So these answers are pretty statistically significant. You are able to click into this epic and see, hey, this is the epic. Here's that one that's left, and you can work on that. You're also able to open up an issue navigator query for the ones that are left and do work on that. Now, if I wanted to change the percentile for the confidence, like if I said, okay, I need to be more confident, I'm not comfortable with that, then sort of, as your mind is probably telling you, the higher confidence level I need, the farther out the date is going to get. So if I choose 90 or 95, I'm going to save that. And so it pushed those dates out a little bit from September 22nd to 26th, October 3rd or 4th to October 8th. And depending on your data set, you'll see different epics here, different rates of how fast you're capable of getting work done and going from there. So if I change, for instance, I think I had this one to start with, and I apply this, I'm able to look at a different set of epics. So say I have another project, and we're just starting up, say, okay, and I want to look at their epics, but we haven't finished any work in this new team, right? Because that's a question we get asked a lot. Well, how do we start when we don't have data yet? Well, there's 2 ways you can start. One, you can just estimate like you used to, right? Until you finish at least 10 stories or things inside of your containers. Or you could use data from a similar type of team. And so that's what I'm doing here. I changed the epics that I'm forecasting, but I'm still using a peer team, the web browser app, to show the throughput or the rate that you're able to finish items. So I'm making an assumption here that if this e-commerce team has the same kind of capability to finish work at the same rate, then here is the situation for their epics. So there's a 95% chance that we'll finish this GDPR 1.0 epic on or before October 20th, right? We could do it sooner, but we are saying, there's a 95% chance that we'll at least finish it by then, and only a 5% chance that we'll finish it later. Here's a good example. This is one of the reasons I wanted to show you this different epics set, is that what it looks like when you have a due date. You don't have to use due dates. That's completely fine. And you can see the dashes here are what it will look like if you don't have a due date on your issue. But if you have a due date, we do another kind of forecast for you. Not only are we telling you the date that you're 95% able to finish it by, we're telling you the likelihood you'll finish it by the date you wanted to have it, because those are often not exactly the same thing, right? So in this situation, I have experiments framework for travel suggestions in progress. I wanted it done by the end of October. That's only 20% possible, right? Now, this tool doesn't fix that problem for you, but it's the early trigger you need to go have those normal project management conversations and figure out how can we bring that likelihood up, or maybe we need to change our expectations and start accepting a later date. Okay, so one of the big things about being able to come back, so say if I come back tomorrow and we finished 5 more items, I can come back to this page. My settings for the forecast that I ran are saved for me. So I still have this e-commerce dev. I still have my my data that I chose. I still have my 95% confidence. I'll actually change it back to 85% now. But I can run it again. And so I can see how now, what does it look like now that we have new data? Because every time you finish a piece of work, or every time you add work to an epic, that's going to change your forecasted date or your due date likelihoods. And the same vein, as your data source, this historical data, as that updates with new and newer data, if those people that we're pulling this from are improving their process and they're starting to get things going out more frequently, more consistently, then these dates are going to start pulling in. And conversely, if it starts to slip, or say maybe we're hit by this, vacations over the summer in Europe, there's quite long vacations, you start getting a little worried about your forecasted date, because that's what's happening. And unless something changes, here's when we're going to finish if we don't pick back up that pace, right, in post-vacation land. So this is a really good way. This is what we call your actual forecast. These are the things in progress. At any given data set, if I'm saying that these 4 things are in progress, then what the simulation is doing is it's saying, okay, you're trying to balance all these epics. I'm going to randomly distribute the work you're likely to finish across all of these 4. We can talk more about Monte Carlo simulations later. That's the simulation that we use to get this information. It's the same kind of model that your investment portfolios will use to tell you. They usually give you an optimistic, a pessimistic, and a maybe medium expectation for your return rates. It's the same kind of model. It's a proven model for uncertainty. So it's taking all the variation in how you finish data, and it's taking all of these different items that you have to finish, how many things you have in progress, and it's using all that variation to run simulations until all these items are done. And it does that 10,000 times and builds sort of this histogram of all your different options. And then it looks at all the percentages and does all this visualization for us so that we don't have to see all the nitty-gritty charts and calculations behind it, but it can just present us with the answers that we really want to know. For those who want to verify what's going on, you can download the historical data. In this 1.0, it's formatted in a way that if you also have Actionable Agile, you can just upload it there, and then you can go into deeper analysis on this and even run some simple Monte Carlos in that. You can also download your forecast, etc. Okay, so that is getting your initial forecast in 1.0. Now, let's come to the fact that sometimes we need to do some scenario planning, right? And so then we need to look beyond what's happening right now and talk about what could happen. And so I'm going to toggle. It's not very well named, but it's named for one thing we're doing. Right now, we're toggling on the ability to see items that we haven't started yet. What I like to call this is our what if scenario planning, right? So I'm not sure why it says 6 actual, but there's 4 actual in progress, okay? And so it is looking at this happening with 4 items going on at one time. And what's happening now is that when I have these items that are not started, it's going to say, oh, you always want to keep 4 items in progress. So this one is the one that will finish first because it has the fewer items. So when this one finishes, the GDPR 1.0, it will come down and the simulation will say, okay, well, I'm starting this one now. And then when that one finishes, it'll pick up this one. And you're always keeping 4 in progress until it runs out of ones to add, because eventually we'll get to the end of this. Right. So I'm able to see not only dates for, let me go back to this, dates for when these are likely to finish, the ones that are in progress, but also if I picked up these additional ones as soon as the other ones finish, when are those likely to be completed with the confidence that I need? And now I know that you've probably seen me click around to different numbers on here. This is where we play around with scenarios about, and you Agile coaches and flow kinds of people might really like this. What if I worked on fewer things at a time? How would that impact my forecast? Because we're trying to convince people to reduce their WIP, not only at the individual board column level, but at a portfolio kind of level. Because when I was managing, regardless of what anyone wanted, if I had more than 2 projects going on at one time with my small team, things fell apart, right? So let's say, what if we only did 2 items at one time? Let me save that. And now I'm able to come and look at the difference here. So instead of in October, this pulls up to September. This went from red to yellow, which means the due date is much more likely, and everything just sort of gets improved. Let's change the question. Someone's coming to me and saying, we have to start this new thing, but we can't stop anything else, right? It's critical. They're all priority 1. So, okay, well, we're doing 2 right now. What happens if I add a 3rd one? Let's see what that does to my outcomes. And then I can say, okay, I hear you. We can do that. But if we do that, here's what you're agreeing to. You're agreeing to these changes and when the other things are likely to be finished. Because now I'm able to bring data to what could otherwise be an emotional conversation. Okay. I'm going to go back to the 4 here. Okay, now we've got 4 things in progress right now, and that just, I set that so it's easier to match with these. This is the actual status. These are the ones that are in progress. So what if someone came and said, hold the presses, this new thing is now our priority 1. So I need you to go put that project about growing things on Mars on the shelf, because we need to work on our partner integration framework. So now I'm going to reorder this, okay? And I'm going to recalculate. And now I'm able to see we're still only doing 4 items. So it's forecasting these 4 first. And then when that first one picks up, then it'll pick up our things on Mars again, but we effectively put it on hold. What is that going to do to our forecasted dates? Okay, so these are really common scenarios that I can definitely see happening even here, despite my best efforts sometimes. There's one more scenario, and that is work ahead. Inevitably, some people pick up the occasional extra thing that that they're not supposed to, or they're working ahead in a epic that's not started yet. So you can fudge a little space for save some work for people working ahead. Okay. You can reset your order to go back to if you had reordered anything for that scenario plan, and you can always go back to your actual forecast of what's going on right now. So that is what's happening in the current version of Portfolio Forecaster. If you were to purchase Portfolio Forecaster for Jira Cloud or Jira Data Center, that would be your experience. I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes showing you the new version in Jira Cloud. We're going to do this on Jira Cloud first, and then we're going to go into Jira Data Center. So we're moving to an app level, a product level app. So we'll be able to have Portfolio Forecaster here. And before, where I was the only one that could see my forecast, now we're actually building an enterprise level app where I can decide who else can administer this forecast, who else can view it. I'm able to look at my forecast. It looks very similar to the forecast that the output of what I showed you before. You're able to see a bit more about the throughput that we're using. You can even export that throughput. You're able to see a little bit more about the configurations that were put in for the forecast. You're also able to see about the progress. So yeah, there's 6 left, but we finished 7 out of 13. We're going to have some eventual actions to let you see more things like due date performance for an epic. How did this due date likelihood change over time, or any other kind of metrics you want to see on how this forecast has changed. We've been listening to our customers and what they're sort of doing manually, and there's a lot of things that we think that we can let you do here. Also, one of the biggest changes is that this is going to be something where we're storing the configurations and the encrypted data, not your Jira work data, but just some basic calculations and configurations, so that we can keep a historical list of all the forecasts you've done before. So if there was an earlier forecast, you could go back and see what it looked like then as well. And we're going to also eventually add where you can schedule these to run every week or something like that. There's lots of things that we want to do. We've got a roadmap that you'll be able to look at. We'll make sure you have all of the information. But that's sort of what's going on right now for Portfolio Forecaster, and why I think you should give an alternative way a try. I talked longer than I thought, so I want to just cut it off here and put up this about where you can try it from. It's on the Atlassian Marketplace. Everyone gets at least a 30-day trial. If you're on data center, you can get a lot longer. If you absolutely need more time on your cloud, we can occasionally extend that. We can work with Atlassian. But one of the more important things is a lot of people are working with solution partners to help them. So if you're looking for someone to help streamline and optimize your Jira experience, including your apps, onpoint is a great group to work with, not just for the Jira itself, but for figuring out the right apps for your needs, like Portfolio Forecaster. So I wanted to stop and take any questions, see what you want to say.
Hi again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Julia, for this insightful session. It was really valuable, and I'm sure everyone else found it valuable. Okay, so as you said, now we open the floor for your question, guys. If you have any question for Julia about today's topic or anything else related to agile estimation and forecasting, please write it down in the chat box, and we'll try our best to answer them all.
And there's no bad questions. I'm almost positive something I said was confusing or didn't make sense, so please ask. It's totally fine.
Go ahead, guys.
While people are typing, one of the things about really taking this data-driven approach to like letting your data work for you is that instead of focusing on building a better way to forecast and building a better model and trying to get that original way more correct, actually focusing on improving your process and doing better work will improve your forecast when you use your data to forecast. Now, I see that Lee asked if we have a roadmap for ADO integration, so Azure DevOps. For those of you who may not know, we have actionable Agile analytics in not only Jira, but standalone and in Azure DevOps. We do have a long-term plan to bring this over to Azure DevOps. In fact, Julie Starling works in Wales for Principal Building Society, and she is in Azure DevOps, and she's actually some of the big driver for some of the things I want to put in to this Portfolio Forecaster version, because I'm looking at the amazing stuff she's doing, and our Azure DevOps market is just growing and growing. So as soon as we're finished in Data Center, we want to try to be ready to go in Azure as well. Hopefully that helps. Can Monte Carlo simulations be used effectively for non-software Agile projects? I think absolutely. So I like to say that, flow in general, and so actionable Agile works on flow metrics, which is, there's just 4 basic ones: how long it takes to get work done, cycle time, throughput, the rate at which you finish work, with how much work you have in progress, and work item age, how old the stuff is that you haven't finished yet. Flow is important for any kind of team, no matter what type of work you do. And even if you don't even know what the word Agile means, if you start and finish work, you can make your process better and improve how work goes from the first part of your process to the last part of your process. So because I can improve my flow, I can focus on my throughput and getting work done, I can run Monte Carlo simulations for any type of work using any type of methodology. Now, it's interesting, the thing that we will see is that we're using the data as the input for the simulation to forecast with. I will see patterns in the data. Sometimes I can tell what type of process you have by looking at the data of how work gets finished in your system. So if I see big batches of items being closed every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, I have some idea that you're at least working in a very iterative process where things stay open till the very end and then they close and stuff like that. I can make some assumptions. So because I can see that in the data, that will affect how your forecast looks. And then if you don't like that, you then have an impetus to improve your process, which will fix a lot of other things, but will also fix your forecast. Hopefully that helped. Well, I have no idea why. Perhaps I touched on it, but why is the simulation called Monte Carlo and not Las Vegas? No idea. Maybe because we don't want it equated with Sin City. I don't know. I couldn't tell you when the name originated because, as I mentioned, this isn't some like new shiny flash in the pan thing that software developers are cooking up just to make a fast buck. This is a true tested model for uncertainty, and so insurance adjusters, or maybe not adjusters, but the people who write all the formulas and decide what's going to happen, they're using this kind of thing. Your investment, if you look at your literature that comes with your investment portfolios and you read the prospectuses, I geek out every time I see the words Monte Carlo because I know what they're doing. It's really cool. So that is just another signal that we live in uncertain times. There are models for dealing with uncertainty. I know that you probably also know that there is no perfect model. Every model is wrong, but some models are better than others. And I'd much rather focus on a model that's suited for uncertainty than trying to push in a model that really is for a certain environment and try to make it fit. It doesn't work that way. So we're just really embracing the options that let us embrace uncertainty and let us focus on fixing our process. And if we're working with our data to help us forecast and stuff, the more we work on our process and make things better, the better our forecasts get. We don't have to work on our forecast. We just work at getting better. The forecasts update as we do that. Great question.
I hope you answered your question, Joseph. Thank you so much, Julia. Any more questions, guys? Please write them down in the chat box and you'll answer them. We still have a few minutes until we wrap up. Okay. In the meantime, Julia, if you have something like, let's say, like your last word, like something you want our audience today to remember about Portfolio Forecaster, what would it be?
Oh, thanks for asking. I think I'll just repeat something that I kept saying. Portfolio Forecaster is here to help you thrive in the uncertain environment that you're in. And focusing on getting better forecasts through Portfolio Forecaster means you have to improve your process. So it's really a win-win. It's a generative cycle. Everything you're doing to fix this is fixing something else and not the other way around. We're not wasting time improving this. Can you amend the workflow set points? Wouldn't it be ready to be shipped, etc. So I think what you're saying is, can you amend the workflow set points? Is that in the 1.0 example I talked about, that we're looking at what's in progress. And so we're using status categories, et cetera, and there's not a whole lot of flexibility in 1.0. But in 2.0, we have another iteration where we workshop this inside our own team, and we decided this was too complex, so we're making it a bit more streamlined. But as you can see, I choose, much like the other one, where I want to pull the stuff from. Do I want epics, or I can choose any level of items now. And then I can set what in progress means and what completed means. And not only that, but now I can also refine the type of stuff inside of those parents that I want to forecast. Maybe you don't want to pull everything. We had a customer that didn't want that. They only wanted certain things. So you're able to say what to pull out of here, both with issue types, queries, but also you can define what completed means for that. Maybe it just means sent to test or something like that. We're also going to let you choose not just the normal parent-child relationship, but maybe you want a different kind of issue link, and so on and so forth. So this isn't your grandpa's portfolio forecaster. This is going to be very, very flexible for you to do what you want to do, but hopefully not so flexible that it's too complex. We're really working on that balance, but we're going to have a great beta period for people to give us feedback.
Interesting. And it's going to be updated soon?
Yeah, we are finishing up our preparation for our initial beta in Jira Cloud. And we're hoping to do that next month. It won't have everything we want in the first general release, but we want to get early feedback. And then during the beta, we'll be adding things. And then we're going to be going to general availability. And then we'll move on to the next platform, having learned everything from Jira Cloud. And each time, each next place we go, they'll have an even better start because we have learned from the previous deliveries. And when we go to ADO, we'll definitely have to tailor it to the Azure environment and, make sure everything makes sense. We're not just going to take the Jira and plop it into the Azure because that's just a recipe for disaster. But the basic components will carry through.
Interesting. Guys, any more questions before we wrap up? Malik, any more questions?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or 55 Degrees or, anything but carrier pigeon, pretty much. We'll be able to answer your question.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I just would like to mention that if you are interested in diving deeper into the topic of today, you have the option, as Julia said, to book a personalized demo. Whether you want to learn more about onpoint, how can it customize solutions to fit your needs, or explore how 55 Degrees tools like today's tools, Portfolio Forecaster, or even the previous tool we discussed last week. On analytics. You can book a demo with them, and you can schedule it, and we'll be sharing a link to book that on the follow-up mail. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Any final words, Julia, before we say goodbye?
No, just thank you for coming. I really love seeing representation from parts of the world that I don't get to talk to very much. So I'd love to hear from you all what's important in your context. That's really great information. So if this is of interest to you, please reach out and connect with me. Let's just chat about this stuff and I can learn something and we can make better products.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being such an engaging audience. And a big shout out to Julia for sharing her expertise with us today. We hope you find this session informative and insightful, and you'll be able to apply what you have learned today in your own projects. And if you have any further question, we can continue the conversation after this demo. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Have a great day.